live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwaka Mimo. The repercussions of President Uhuru Kenyatta's State of the Nation speech are still being felt. He apologized for past government failures, acknowledged the wounds of ethnic division, and asked anyone implicated in a report on corruption to step aside. But there was nothing in his speech about the state of gender relations, the rising cases of sexual violence in the country, the state of human rights. And so that will be our focus on Cheche today with Kagwiria Mbogori. She is the chairperson of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and Atango Chisoni, the executive director of the Kenya Human Rights Commission and one of the drafters of the Constitution. Good morning and welcome to Cheche. Atango, because I've known you for many years, I'll start with you. Your organizations are similarly named. Can you clear up that confusion for us? Because they're both Kenya Human Rights Commissions or something like that.
Thank you, Udwak, and thank you, Mutegi and David, for having me here this morning. There is a history in common. The Kenya Human Rights Commission, which I work as the executive director of, is a civil society organization. And it was out of the work that the Kenya Human Rights Commission did that we ended up with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, initially as a statutory body, and then it was constitutionalized under Article 59 with the new constitution. So that's the history. And I think it gets a little bit confusing because our founding executive director was the founding chairperson of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. So there's some personnel similarities if you go into the history of the institution. Okay. But that's the difference. One is a constitutional body, the other is a civil society organization.
Right. So from your perspective as a civil society organization, what did you think about the State of the Nation address?
Well, under the Constitution, the President is meant to address Parliament. It's the only time he is mandated and required to appear before Parliament. And during that time, he is supposed to explain what the government of the day is doing in response to Article 10. So, on principles and values. And Article 10 has a whole range of principles and values, including human rights, including the issue of accountability and transparency. So I think he attempted to give us a strong response on the issue of transparency and accountability, but however tilted towards one side of that area of transparency and accountability, because for me integrity extends to issues beyond corruption. There's a range of issues in terms of integrity. So I think it was stronger in its attempt with respect to corruption. I think there are some things that will need to be addressed in terms of process so that it's not used as justification to avoid justice. But I'm not too persuaded that there was an attempt to address the other issues in relation to Article 10.
Such as?
So it would be good to be, the general human rights issues. Social justice is one of the Article 10 principles, so we should have heard about, the range of them, not just one area of it.
Ms. Mbogori, I'll come to you. What did you think? Because we're addressing rising cases of sexual violence. He addresses a parliament where there are cases of sexual harassment, sexual violence, and that's omitted. Was that a glaring omission?
I'd like to say that the runaway corruption in this country was such a weighty issue that it really had to be addressed. And we are glad that he did address it quite robustly. I would not say that his failure to, His Excellency's failure to mention or to deal or to say anything about gender issues was necessarily omission or avoidance, but it would have been a good thing to hear him on that, especially with the recent cases involving parliamentarians.
Why do you say that it would have been good for him to address that, but that it wasn't a glaring omission, given that runaway corruption, as you describe it, has been occupying almost the same acres of space in the media as the sexual assaults. Let's just situate this. A girl, a 10-year-old girl, gives birth to a child. You go to the National Assembly, an MP is accused of harassing another one. We have a case of an MP accused of raping someone. You have a conversation taking place, a debate in Parliament taking place, where the lady who is accused, who alleges that she was raped by an MP, is being blamed for the attack because she's married, she was out with this MP at a bar late at night, and nobody says anything about... Yes.
I hear you. But I think actually that the overriding problem that we have is corruption. If we are not afraid of corruption and the impunity that corruption brings, then cases of sexual violence would be addressed properly. Because right now, if a person of power is accused or suspected of sexual abuse, there is actually a public expectation that he will get away with it, because he has the money and the wherewithal to either corrupt the system or do something to get away with a crime. And far be it, let it not be said that, for instance, I'm not trying in any way or form to minimize or diminish the importance of gender issues in our country, because in the same way that corruption has been such an overriding issue, I also think that the impunity that has been afforded to offenders of sexual offenses is troubling. So
why address one and leave the other? Why not do everything at the same time, since one has the opportunity?
If I was a presidential advisor, I would have definitely, or a speechwriter, I would have definitely inserted
in fact, but that. Interesting that you say if you were presidential advisor. Yes. It seems that the president asked for a particular report from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Shouldn't he also have asked for a report on the status of human rights and gender from you? Yeah. Well, you were not consulted at all. That's what we must conclude.
Yes. Well, that is more than a conclusion, it's a fact.
Yes.
That we were not asked to submit anything. However, under our establishing act, we are also required to submit annual reports to the President and to Parliament, which we did at the end of the last financial year. And there was little reference in the state of the nation from our report, I must say. But he did apologize. I think that was momentous. Let's just also acknowledge that the acknowledgement of historical wrongs and presidential apology for that was one step in the right direction in terms of addressing some historical wrongs. Some of the groups who have worked with victims or relatives of victims of the Wagala massacre in Wajir. And those are Kenyans who have been waiting for a very, very long time just to be acknowledged. And I think in the State of the Nation address, the President singled them out. And that we can say was something that featured in our report.
It also featured in the TJRC report.
Let's get from high. Is that your view? You think that some people poo-pooed the apology? Is that your view?
I think...
Before Asango says something, maybe let me say that I felt that the apology was a good thing. But we must go beyond the apology to restitution and reparations. Asango.
Okay, I want to just say that, first of all, I agree with the end bit of what Kikwere has just said. The point is that we put in place a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission process in this country. We had a legal process that required that there be a parliamentary debate, and then that we would then begin the discussion around the questions of restitution, around the implementation of the recommendations of the TJRC. you cannot begin to speak about a process of reconciliation in any situation where you've had long-standing injustices without dealing with acknowledgement and the issue of justice. You know, if those issues are not addressed, if the issue of justice is not addressed, if the issue of truth-telling is not addressed, then you don't have people who are survivors of those violations feeling that their concerns have actually been listened to, because what are you apologizing for if you don't acknowledge that something happened in the first place?
Which necessitates the apology.
Yes. So I think acknowledgement is an important step. Apology is an important step, but I would like to see us complete the steps that were required by us in law and that we committed ourselves to as a country. And I think what bothers me about all of this, you know, whether it is the State of the Nation report, whether it is what it is that KNCHR is describing about the fact that they put in, you know, that they submitted their reports, which it is true are meant to be submitted to the President and to Parliament, is the fact that we are very selective about that which we are willing to comply with to do with our laws. And that's what underpins all of this. It's the fact that we only wish to remember that the law says that we do certain things. We only wish to remember that the values that we as a nation say we stand for include this or that particular value when it suits our needs. So if it is uncomfortable to remember that the integrity provisions under Chapter 6 do not only refer to corruption, they refer to any conduct by a state officer, either by him or herself, or by association with others, whether in private or in public. We selectively focus on the aspect that is useful for our political elite at that moment to focus on, so that we can then have a ridiculous situation where we are told by people in leadership that such and such a thing is a criminal offense and therefore is not an integrity issue. But this, as if corruption is not a crime. How is corruption not a crime? Yeah. And so why is it that there's one set of crimes that you think that people should be held accountable for at this particular point in time? Yeah. You didn't think they needed to be held accountable for them a year ago. Some of these things, you know, from what is appearing in the newspapers, appear to have been, you know, under investigation for a number of years. So why wasn't it thought to be an issue a year or two ago? You didn't think that, you know, so you think that this crime, it's okay to speak about it. This other crime, right now, it's not flavor of the month. We need to have a problem with violations of integrity, and as far as I'm concerned, people who are implicated, particularly if they've got to a stage where they're charged, in any court that is recognized by the laws of Kenya, if they are charged with some form of criminal offense, need to be suspended until they have been cleared by a judicial process.
Are you talking about the deputy president?
Regardless, I am talking about the deputy president. Yeah. I am talking about we have various parliamentarians who have been charged with respect to other things which we've forgotten in this whole slew of discussions that we're having right now. And I am pointing to elective officials because one of the excuses that is being used is that so-and-so is elected, as if election means that you cannot be held accountable. But so-and-so is appointed. So let us hold, that's one of the double standards. There's a gender double standard. There is a double standard with respect to how you got into office. Chapter 6 does not distinguish between all those things. You know, it applies whether you are appointed or whether you are elected. And it applies to ethics and integrity. So the standard is not even...
It's not really
crime is higher. It's far higher. Yeah. It's a far higher standard. And so when we agree that there is a particular class of public official that we are willing to lower standards for, and when we agree to this kind of differential treatment as a society, we then are in jeopardy. And I think that is the root of it.
You belong to the government. What do you think about this MP who is alleged to have raped somebody? 1 week after, he's still being investigated.
Actually, one week after, he's still out free. He reported to have been consulting with the police officers who should have investigated him. And the president goes to Parliament and says nothing about the fact that there's an alleged rapist in the assembly that he's addressing.
First of all, I would like to say that if he'd been a hawker on the street, he'd be behind bars right now. Yep. So, All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
No, but, sorry, no. I'm going to push you further on that, because clearly you belong to a state body, and you seem to be choosing your words carefully. You referred us to the Orwellian philosophy on life. All animals are equal. Some are more equal than others. Last year, when we saw women being stripped and violated, it took the intervention of the Cabinet Secretary, Anwai Guru, to have the Matatu touts who had violated one woman in particular served with immediate justice. We don't know about the others. What happens in this instance? What are you telling Kenyans about the state of gender relations, about the state of human rights in the country, about the state of women, about the state of you, me, at Sango in this country?
Can't the organization do anything?
Those are a lot of questions. Let me try to go one by one. What you want me to say, I think, is that there was this glaring omission. Was there not? There was. It was, yes, there was an omission. But on the other hand, I was also thinking that when the president's State of the Nation address is being prepared, he definitely uses a lot of advisors. Okay, I would like to say that unfortunately we are not in that close set of advisors that contribute to that particular address. I have no way of understanding why there was that particular omission. What I can hazard as a guess is the fact that in a lot of minds, and all Kenyan minds, gender doesn't weigh very heavily.
Does that mean that you failed at your job?
Sorry?
Does that mean that you failed?
I think that will have to be a question not for me to answer necessarily, but for others who will judge me to answer. And essentially, you ought to remember that we have a National Gender and Equality Commission.
Does that take away from what you do?
In a sense, all the Article 59 commissions, we have a separate mandates, and gender falls squarely within the mandate of Winnie Lichuma's commission. However, we take in my commission gender as a cross-cutting thing, which means that we address it as well. We are bound to address it as well, because one, it's part of the Kenya's commitments in terms of treaty obligations, but apart from that, it is entrenched in a constitution and one of the constitutional principles. But do we, for instance, entertain complaints related to gender per se? We refer them to our sister commission.
Okay. But David, you've been frowning. Yes, come in.
No, I'm a bit, let me just say disappointed a bit from my own way of looking at things. Well, these bodies, this civil society organization, and that is a statutory body that is supposed to hold government to account on human rights. An incident has occurred, a gross violation, alleged gross violation. It's a crime, but also is a human rights issue that needs very robust response from the watchdog bodies that are charged with this mandate. What I think Atsango is trying to extract, Udwak is trying to extract from you, and I'm listening keenly, is what recourse do you have in a case such as the one where the MP is alleged to have violated a woman? Investigations have gone on for more than 2 weeks now, almost 2 weeks now. No result. Is that the normal procedure on time it takes to investigate a crime? And if that were to be the case, would we ever have crimes investigated and prosecuted? And shouldn't that concern you? And what have you done about it?
That does concern me as a person. It concerns me as the chairperson of our Constitutional Commission. But I'll tell you where our monitoring is. As chairperson of this commission, I'm also a board member of the Independent Police Oversight Authority.
In fact?
Yes. Yeah. And our concern is not so much with the culprit as with the police. Yeah. So our work is to monitor what the police do. In terms of your question regarding how long does it take to investigate a crime, some crimes take longer than others. And I'm not...
Do you feel this hasn't taken inordinately long? You are satisfied?
I think I already said that if this gentleman, if the suspect had been a street hawker, he'd be behind bars.
Yes.
That is my belief.
Then that should issue, something should issue from your position after that belief. Like, what can you do as a commission to bring justice or action to happen much faster? Is there anything that the public should expect, on their behalf that you'll do?
On behalf of the public, the work we are doing is to monitor what the police are doing.
Just monitor. There's no other remedial intervention that can bring justice to bear quickly.
I want to assure you that we do not have police authority, and our mandate does not include any form of policing authority. And we do, unlike, for instance, the DPP, who under the Constitution can give directions to the IG for in some cases in terms of investigation and that, you will see that the law is very clear on who can give orders or who can direct the IG of police in operational cases or in operational
is the DPP.
work. It's a DPP, or in some cases the CS, and then only in writing and only on matters of policy.
With respect, Ms. Mugore, it sounds like you're shifting, you're trying to avert responsibility. You may not have a direct mandate, as you say, because you've put it in the box of your sister commission. But I do seem to remember a time in this country where your organization would issue statements outlining their position on certain issues affecting the country. And it seems in this instance you've squandered an opportunity to add your voice to those clamoring for justice, and B, to show us that your commission actually is serving the public interest. But Atsango, I'll come to you to ask you what you think, whether there was a glaring omission from the president in omitting the rising cases of sexual violence, gender relations, human rights, civil liberties.
I think part of what is going on in our country is that we have, it's not just, and Kagweri I think was pointing to this, we have also a public whose value system are also consistent with what you're hearing from the leadership. And so I suspect, and I am using the word suspect deliberately, having not had any, I'm not privy to the goings on of the president's mind or his speech writers or his advisors. However, I suspect that as a politician, he probably considers the public that is concerned about corruption at this particular point in time to be a bigger public or a more powerful public than the public that is concerned about sexual violence. And so we have a responsibility as citizens to make it clear to our political leadership that we take these issues also seriously. They will respond to that. They will respond to, even though we had a very dismissive, because there was a statement read out, I think, last Friday but one, by some civil society organizations with regards to the corruption situation. We heard some very dismissive responses from some of the political leadership, But I do think that this response in the speech was in part informed by the fact that there's been a lot going on in the media saying that there is something wrong with our country from the perspective of corruption. Maybe we need to also be as citizens a lot louder about our concerns with respect to sexual violence, because we have a culture of patriarchy, and therefore, across the board, when you have a demonstration, which we did on the same day that this speech was happening, you have attention paid more to certain issues than to others. So I think that's part of the dynamic that we are dealing with.
Is that where maybe also this Kagwira would speak to it? From the perspective of the constitutional commissions, is there frustration? Because you say all these things, you don't have your mandate stops at some point where, you cannot perhaps be forceful or, punch around and get things done, which is what the public expects from you. That's why they're calling all these constitutional bodies toothless bulldogs. They're preparing reports, handing them over. They never, either the reports are acted upon or not. Perchance, if you can mobilize a demonstration in town, you'll be noticed or heard. Are you manacled or, constrained?
Shackled?
Yeah, that you can't do much, even with the powers that the public believes you have.
Okay, thank you. One thing I wanted, maybe I would like to also go back to what her original question to me about the fact that formally our commission would
issue
statements, would say this and that and everything. But I'd like to also remind her that that was a time when it was still it was a statutory body, and this multiplicity of constitutional commissions had not been formed. So you'd have our predecessor commission would be speaking out on land issues. Now we have a National Land Commission. We'll be speaking out on gender issues. Now we have a Gender and Equality Commission. We'll be actually speaking even out on issues that the Commission on Administration of Justice speak out on, which is either indiscipline or relating to public officers and violations. To a certain extent, I don't think that the dance is a bit tighter now.
Sorry,
but the human rights component,
just
which I'm left with.
Sorry, I'd like to understand your response to my, to my challenge to you. Are you saying that you cannot issue statements now because there's a multiplicity of commissions, or that the statements that were issued had to do with your previous iteration?
The mandate of the predecessor commission was wider.
So had more areas
and yes, had more areas. But apart from that, I'm not saying we cannot issue statements, and that has not been restricted.
But if you come to the area, the mandate that you're left with.
But that is exactly what you're saying. Yes. Is our role only about statements? Is it only maybe talking or speaking or uttering statements? Can we do anything else? And I think the word you used was our commission's toothless bulldogs.
Yes.
When Uhuru interfered, it is not a mandate, but she did something. It is not Waiguru's business to go and look for rapers in the streets with the Matatu people, but she did something effective. You did nothing. That's what we're saying, both of you.
Yeah. Well, she is also the CS in charge of the of the gender directorate.
Yeah.
But
on the human rights,
we are not toothless. But I would invite you to actually read our mandate and appreciate what it is, inculcating a culture of human rights in the country. And we do that. We speak about that. And but I think you will also want constitutional commissions not to speak out of turn, but to speak responsibly and to have facts.
Yeah.
And you cannot have facts if you don't monitor.
Yes.
And monitoring means that you observe, because I think the words in the Constitution are observe, monitor, report, document. Those are the words that relate to our mandate. We do not have arrest as a verb. We do not have words of that demonstrate. In fact, how does it look when a constitutional commission organizes a demonstration on the street? It means that you have completely all other ways of executing your mandate. You've come to the end of the rope. Now you have hit the streets. Yeah. It is okay for citizens to do it, and our work is to monitor and defend the right of citizens to demonstrate in the street, and to ensure that those rights are not curtailed. Coming back to your issue, I would just say that I think you will need to maybe give us the time to come up with a report, because we would like to see where this is going. Is this person going to be charged? Is there any wrongdoing on the part of the police? And we will make that report.
Okay. We have to
and
take
make
a break.
recommendations.
She's talking about reports. Just a minute. Yeah. You said you submitted a report to the president last year. Can you give us a very quick headlines on what your report said? Is that possible? Just the main points of your report.
After the break, so
after the break. Okay, yes. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Let's take a break. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV, and we're discussing Kenya, the state of gender relations, human rights, civil liberties. Tell us what you think. Our SMS number is 22422. You can tweet us on @Cheche_TV.